3, 2, 1. EO! That's a quote from EO, which was inspired by the recommendation for today that I'm not going to pronounce yet until later. I'm Adam from Your Movie Sucks. This is Sardonicast. That was a donkey noise.
Oh, was it? I'm HMIHE, and can you stop that? Yeah, how are we doing?
Very tired, but we have one other person. Let's not forget. I know we're so used to just there being two of us.
I'm Jake from Man Carrying Thing and Woman Carrying Man and Thing Carrying Object. A lot of variation there.
Mm-hmm. And you're literally carrying the podcast today because Alex and I are both fucking sleep deprived as hell. I don't know how this happened.
Yeah, what's going on?
Oh yeah, welcome to the club. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you would be too.
The tired episode.
I got like 5 hours last night. It was kind of crazy. I'm very fortunate.
I allegedly got 8 hours, but I tried a new sleeping pill and I do not feel rested at all. I feel terrible. I have little flashes of memories from being asleep, and most of it was like sleep paralysis. Like most of it was like just nightmares. So
oh, weird. Yeah, I had one of those 2 nights ago too. It was horrifying.
Yeah,
I like woke up in this like panic thing. My heart was going. It's just not been my week.
Yeah, my body was asleep, but my brain wasn't. Essentially, which
I mean, the same thing.
You know, I could just lie down and not sleep if I wanted that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all three of us are really mentally equipped to talk about these two very serious films.
Yeah. These dense, like philosophical.
Well, that's why I have my notes. I'm just going to read my notes. I'm going to be on autopilot. I'm not going to actually engage with anything today.
That's good. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need. That's what we want.
It's what I do every day.
I actually did. I have a bit of a statement to make to our viewers.
I'm ready.
Because last week was, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, was my official introduction as a host on the podcast. And everyone was very nice. I feel very welcomed by the wider Sardonicast community.
I heard whiter,
everyone,
by the way.
Well, I mean, that's going without. Do I really have to say that? I'm very grateful to be included. And all the comments were very nice. And then I went on the subreddit.
Uh-oh.
And I learned. I mean, everyone was pretty nice there too. But I learned that there's one thing people are hoping that I bring to the podcast overwhelmingly.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that the viewers are hoping I'll be a strong force against Adam's dog shit opinions. So, to this, I say to both viewers and to Adam, challenge accepted.
Yay!
I will not let him rest. I will not let him sleep, knowing he gave Emilia Perez a movie I didn't like a slightly positive score. So to the viewers, I am your avenger. Adam's opinions about movies on his movie podcast that you all listen to will not be tolerated. And that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
I've been very bad.
Yes, bad.
I need to be punished.
Yeah, let's get aggressive.
Yeah, is everybody waiting for that conversation? I'm going to be watching it a second time for my Oscar nominations video anyway, so we'll talk about it on the podcast. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You'll get your disagreement. Okay.
Well, I was kind of confused because last episode it wasn't an Emilia Perez conversation. We were talking about the Oscar noms for a full hour.
Yeah.
But all of the comments are just about that one thing, and we're like, oh, why is Alex just glossing over his opinions on the movie? And it's like, well, I didn't have that wasn't the conversation.
We mentioned it like for, I don't know, 30 seconds as we were trying to get through the list of nominations.
I feel slightly to blame because on my review of Emilia Perez, I mentioned that I was on Sardonicast now, and I think I said that you gave it a 7. And
that has nothing to do with it. People are leaving the comments anyway.
Yeah,
it's very, and then they're like, how can you think that the discourse is unhinged? As there's literally a post about it every single fucking day in the subreddit. And every single time it's like the most uncharitable version of what I said. Like, just look at the new comments on my fucking video.
It's just things keep getting crazier and crazier with the whole story with Carla Sofia Gascon.
The tweets
it's funny.
The tweets. So it's just stirring up a controversy, and now everyone wants to pick on you for your 2-minute review.
I also feel like most people talking about it are not film people. Like,
I haven't seen it.
We've lost that point. And now we're into the conversations that are the equivalent of any other conversation on like fucking Twitter.
It's mainstream, yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't film people talking about it anymore.
No, there's a lot of conservative, like, you know, the anti-woke people, and then you see a lot of the liberal people critiquing it from that. So it's very it's definitely broken out of like the film festival thing. It's
culture war shit, which is just so annoying. That's why I compared it to The Last of Us 2. It's like, there are people talking about the artistic elements of the film, and depending on what your feed and timeline looks like, if you're a person that didn't talk about it on your YouTube channel, then you're probably getting a much more positive version of those opinions. But when you look at the shit, when you look at the responses I'm getting, you should be able to understand why I feel like the discourse is a little unhinged, right? That's not a crazy opinion to have, right? Stop gaslighting me, please.
Also, you reviewed it like pretty early, like right when you saw it at TIFF, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
yeah. And then people are like, "Oh, you're just pretending to like it because you're like, how can you like this movie when all of those mean tweets that came out 2 days ago happened? Like, what the fuck? Okay, I'll watch it a second time. Hold your fucking horses, okay? We'll have the conversation."
Yeah.
Calm down.
We got to hype it up for weeks and weeks, you know, make it a big event.
Yeah, string it along.
We're doing that. We're literally doing that right now. Like now we're responding to the overwhelming amount of Emilia Perez discussion by continuing to add to the discussion. Mm-hmm. Now we're in a constant feedback loop.
It never ends.
It never ends. It's crazy. I never would have thought that this weird, like, fucking
French.
Yeah, I'm so tired. I'm blanking on his name.
Jacques
Audiard. Thank you. Got it. I never would have thought that this would be like the most talked about and controversial movie of the year. I kind of expected it to be something that, like, you know, some people saw. I wasn't even sure it would like be an Oscar movie. Really, that wasn't my expectation. A lot of people are calling it Oscar bait. I think that's not accurate. Like, what other Oscar movie has been like Oscar that? Bait when you're watching exactly. It. Like for people to call it that is such a weird misunderstanding of like what Oscar movies have been. Like, Oscar bait is A Complete Unknown and Conclave. Those are Oscar
Conclave,
bait. Like, indisputably, right? But I don't know. We'll talk about it later. We should stop talking about it now. Yeah. We're gonna get 800 more threads based off of this short conversation where we're clearly saying that there's a deeper discussion to be had and that we don't have time for it right now.
We will talk about it.
This is where we are. The discourse around this film is I would say it's pretty brutal.
Ooh.
Speaking of brutal,
wow, that was skilled.
I always am. We saw The Brutalist, directed by Brady Corbett, and I feel like I am pronouncing that correctly because he's from Arizona, and everybody else is pronouncing it Corbet. I don't think he's
from
French.
Arizona.
He's from Arizona.
Am I.
I don't think he's French.
He doesn't look like a Corbet, more of a Corbett.
Yeah. So I don't know who's correct here. I would like him to say his own name. Somebody get him to say his own name.
I'm sure it's out there.
And especially if you're a person that does interviews, then it makes more sense instead of accosting him on the street.
To solve all of this, we should just stop with French things entirely.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Just cancel the French.
It seems like they're a problem.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. They are a problem. I'm glad we can agree on that.
Mm. You know, it's funny, after all of this recent news of the trade war between Canada and the US, Quebec's like into Canada now. They're united again.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Quebec digs being a part of Canada for a bit.
And now, because of all that, Americans, they can't make fun of Brexit anymore. They've done it to themselves on an even bigger scale. So, like...
Uh,
I think Americans don't even know what Brexit is.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Is that some kind of waffle?
Is that a beer?
It's some kind of waffle.
Yeah. The Brutalist.
The Brutalist.
We all saw it. 3.5 hour long film with an intermission. Do you know how awesome that is? To have a 15-minute long intermission baked into the movie. They had their own time code and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go on the soundtrack on Spotify, there's a whole piece of music specifically for the intermission that's like 15 minutes long you can listen to. Yeah, like the graphic design of that. And just the relief of when I was getting my ticket scanned, I was like, I knew there was an intermission, but I was double checking with the person. Please tell me there is an intermission, right? Confirm there is, because I'm getting scared. He's like, don't worry. Yeah, there is. And it makes it, it really is a relief. So many movies, like your Avengers and all this stuff, as soon as you go over like 2.5 hours, you should have an intermission, I reckon.
I would argue that it's responsible to, not just for the sake of audience members that might want to pee, but for the fucking theater that's playing your long movie that's the length of 2 other movies, and they make all of their money from concessions. Be good to the theaters. If you know, like, how many fucking directors are talking about how, like, oh, the theater experience is dying? Like, pretty sure Scorsese has made those comments. Pretty sure he's pro theater, and then he releases Killers of the Flower Moon, no intermission. Dude, you can help. You can help save theaters. So Brady Corbett, making Scorsese look like shit.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do think that Killers of the Flower Moon would have been received much more kindly. I mean, it got a ton of great reviews, but people treated it like a big chore because, it didn't have an intermission. Same thing with Avatar: The Way of Water. I remember James Cameron being like, "Well, just see it twice."
True,
you know,
see it twice. That's what he said. No way.
Yeah, well, he's like, "Oh, if you miss it because you have to go pee, well, you'll see it again." So there you go.
Okay, that's asshole behavior.
But he wasn't wrong. I saw it again. Asshole.
That's crazy, actually.
But it was great. It was great.
They have way more control over this too. Like those are name directors, right? Brady Corbett's this guy that's starting to get recognition that I've been paying attention to before, but like the average person has not fucking heard of it.
Yeah, this is only his second feature, right?
Third.
I haven't seen, what was it, Vox Lux? Oh, third.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything else from him.
Yeah. I enjoyed Vox Lux. Very weird, but like very inaccessible. This film is surprisingly accessible despite it also being weird and despite it like sticking to its guns and like, we want to show you something that is somehow simultaneously very accessible and kind of crowd pleasing and kind of like tropey, but also diverts from that quite a bit. And almost makes it so that it's like borderline unsatisfying for people that might be expecting a more of a traditional structure or narrative, I guess, without spoiling anything. We'll get into spoilers in a bit, but
from that first shot, I was like, oh, this is inspired. It's going to be one of these. It makes its strong identity known in an instant. And I was put off, I got to admit, from that runtime, seeing it there, and it's why I didn't see it the day it came out. I've been busy lately, but you were like, nah, trust that it's not going to feel like that, and it really didn't.
Feels like 2 hours.
It flew by for me. This is actually rocketed to, I think it's overtaken. This is recency bias. I only saw this yesterday as of recording, but I think this might be my pick for Best of the year.
Nice.
24 so far. I adored this. I can't stop thinking about it. I've always liked the idea of brutalism as like an architectural style. It's a UK like originated concept, and there's a lot of brutalist architecture in the UK. Well, yeah, true. And I'd have kind of a surface level understanding of it, and just being around a lot of it and seeing it throughout the country, and these sort of associations you have with it. Like growing up, it had always been kind of hammered home to me how it is more of like a Soviet kind of thing. It feels Soviet. It feels that the kind of concrete accessibility contrasted against a more like classical Roman Christian style of architecture. And the way the film embraces architecture for these visual metaphors and how it ties into this lead character of Laszlo, I thought was incredible. And just, yeah, these three leads that kind of carried the movie for me, Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, and Guy Pearce, I thought were, again, they rocketed it up to, I think they deserve the best performances of the year. These are three of my favorite characters from the year. They feel so fleshed out. Adrian Brody, I thought was incredible. It's my favorite performance from him, and that's saying something. Yeah, with some of the films he's been a part of. But I thought there's so much range and depth to this character, and yeah, all the different scenes with him and what he brings out it like breaks you. This is I was going to make a similar using the word brutal joke like you, but I thought maybe I shouldn't go to that flaw. But I mean, it is a brutal fucking film. Yeah. I don't know how are you supposed to put it? Like,
yeah, it's. I mean, I'm just really happy you guys both loved it. I don't know why. I had a feeling. I don't know. Maybe Adam would find it a bit pretentious or overstuffed or something. I don't know, based on your previous takes, but I'm just really glad you both liked it.
Nah, I fuck with Brady. I'm a Brady boy. I'm part of the Brady bunch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brady bunch, cool.
Yeah.
No, I actually, I was excited to see it to begin with, but when I saw it, I was really surprised at how oppressive it is. It's very painful. It's really an experience that sticks with you after you watch it, not just because it's long, but yeah, I mean, it speeds through. It really has this dynamic sense of energy, a lot of ups and downs. And it is sticking, like Adam, you were saying, like tropey, like it has these very like archetypal immigrant tale tropes. But it isn't afraid to really push it to its limits. And I think because of the way this was filmed, I mean, everyone knows it was shot $10 million budget, and on VistaVision, which hasn't been used since fucking, I mean, the 60s or something. I don't know. But because of those limitations, I feel like each scene has really interesting coverage. It's not just your standard over the shoulder coverage of a scene. It's very creative and thinks a lot about what you're looking at and why. And it's every scene it has like a weird angle, like it's shooting on some person who's observing the scene rather than the people talking, or there's so much to chew on scene by scene that I just already from the beginning I was like, damn, okay, we're going into uncharted territory here. Is really exciting. Yeah, it was very well, thoroughly planned out of necessity for getting the film even made in this way. Yeah, I'm very impressed by Brady.
Incredibly ambitious.
Like for him to get a movie that, if you didn't know the budget, you would assume like, I don't know, 40 million, right? So to get something that like looks as though it's at least 4 times the budget of what he actually accomplished.
Yeah, I was very surprised seeing that number because it is an epic, and I know that word has kind of been like ruined online with like the post-irony stuff, but it really does feel epic, not just because of that runtime and everything that happens. It's covering like decades of time, and yeah. But in a way, when you think about it, it's very clever with how it tricks you into thinking it's more epic than it actually is because of, again, like how it's shot and filmed. There's a lot of archival footage of newsreels, information about Pennsylvania, all sorts of stuff that
gives you a larger sense of scope, when in reality, most of the movie's just following this one guy in rooms, but it has that scale that it's really amazing how they're able to kind of trick you into feeling the largeness of it.
Yeah. Yeah, when it feels like you're in a real authentic universe, there's always an implication of like more happening than what you literally see on screen.
Yeah,
it's really good.
But even that with the period piece nature of it, with it being in the 50s, with the the hair, the vehicles you see, the varied locations. It never feels like restricted by that in any way. I was reminded of things like There Will Be Blood, even like speaking of like epics and that kind of scale. But that was what, 25 million in 2007.
Yeah.
Different films, obviously, but I just felt that scale, and it feels big and important. And yeah, I just love this architecture angle and the way it's like integrated into the story as this way to kind of, you mentioned, Jake, the immigrant kind of story, and using that as a vehicle to criticize America, pretty much, and that American dream, and this idea that he's using his passion, his artistry, to create this like visual metaphor for what this character stands for. In this hypocritical place that doesn't really see him as a person. He's just this economic unit, and everyone hates everything else about him except his skill in architecture, his culture, his accent, his religion, the fact he's an immigrant, and then the inherent like kind of irony of a Jewish man designing a church, a Christian church, and kind of asking these questions of what are you willing to sacrifice in the name of your passion or your art, and by the end of it, was it worth it?
Yeah. And like every single person or group of people that he interacts with, like he has to prove that he's trustworthy, right? The default is that he is untrustworthy. Like everybody kind of treats him like shit until they're like, oh, you're actually like really talented and I can actually exploit you. Like that's basically when they start trusting him.
And the way the power dynamics like evolve or devolve with these like Gentile families he gets attached to, and where that goes, it's extremely dark and depressing and expressive, just in the way I love.
Before we get too heavy into spoilers, I do want to talk about some of the other aspects that are more general. Love the score. I would say it's got to win the Oscar at this point, otherwise they're crazy.
It was great.
Without Challengers there, it has
exactly.
to, I mean.
If Challengers isn't nominated, then it's obvious, right? Yeah. Or it should be. And then, I love the choices with how the score is incorporated, and especially the weird, like, title crawl, both in the opening credits and even in the ending credits.
Mm-hmm. Striking.
It implies such a huge sense of confidence for what this film is trying to be. It is very self-aware. It knows that it is epic. It knows that it's an important, serious, memorable film. And it's so refreshing to see something that is just so bold and not in any kind of pretentious way, not in any kind of way where it's implying a greater sense of what it thinks it is versus what it is. Like, no, it actually knows what it is. It's confident and it's self-aware. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought when the trailer for this came out, it was a striking trailer in a similar way. And I thought the way that, the text scrolls across the screen, I was like, oh, that's really cool for a trailer. I hope that's like in the movie somehow. And it really is. Like you mentioned those end credits and the slanted angle. And it's just so much thought and just creativity to the way it's put together. And to the upside down image of the Statue of Liberty as well. It's like such a great encapsulation of what this film is going for. A lot of good like upside down imagery in the movie, actually.
A very rare instance of A24 marketing their film in an honest way. Where what you see is what you get.
Yeah, I feel like the reason people are attaching to this movie so much because it feels like rare and unique to have this kind of huge vision and a director be like, no, this is important. I'm trying to say something serious here. And I'm intentional. It's big for a reason, I'm not just trying to have this style over the substance. Like it really matches. Like I can't imagine it being filmed in any other way based on the story he's trying to tell. It just it works perfectly. Kind of like how we'll be talking about Bresson later, but you feel that sense of confidence in his films too. That's like, no, this is serious shit. I'm not messing around here, you know.
Yeah. To me, it felt kind of like an inverse of a Megalopolis situation, which similarly kind of used the period piece imagery and this like Randian type big criticism of America thing that it's doing. But instead of falling on its face, it's actually achieving what it's going for and elevating something.
Interesting comparisons there, for sure.
Yeah, I was also kind of thinking Megalopolis.
Yeah. I mean, another filmmaker who's like, I'm making a very important statement. I'm an auteur. I have a lot to say. And different angles, you could say. Directions, yeah.
Yeah. It insists upon itself, Lois. It does, though. Yeah. Very, very excellently presented. And I was very happy with... as soon as Guy Pearce's character entered the story, and as soon as that was just like the level of hilarity and kind of over the top performance, but also like the writing of the character, it's definitely an exaggerated kind of like caricature type character, but it still fits and it's still believable. And it's like, okay, yeah, there is probably some guy that's this out there, right? And
it does just fit in the 50s too. I feel like it's like very 50s, that character, and the accentuated nature of his wealth and everything he stands for, I feel like fits that performance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just going to ask if you guys were getting the Master vibes. I mean, I was getting a lot of PTA vibes in general, but especially the Master, especially that dynamic, very like domineering performance from Guy Pearce and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and that kind of relationship. That's really
that's a good point.
Struggle, in the 50s too. So
yeah, that is a good comparison, although I wasn't thinking of that before. But yeah, so much of like the intrigue for the movie for me and the entertainment value just comes from like just watching their dynamic, just those two characters bouncing off of each other. It's a very watchable dynamic. It's just super entertaining. The time just flies by watching these two kind of like figure out each other. Yeah, very well written, and the strength of the character writing just and the authentic feeling of it just helps it go so far for me.
I'm curious, did you guys feel like, because a lot of people are complaining that the second half of the film is not as strong as the first, or that it takes such a shift?
Let's go into spoiler talk.
Yeah, I've been waiting for spoilers.
Okay.
We're in spoilers now.
Hell yeah.
No, I like that it did that. I like that it offered something where by the end of the movie, the movie's over, I'm still thinking about it. I like that.
Yeah.
I like to think about why those choices were made, and I like that it is satisfying in its borderline unsatisfying nature of its choices. And also having seen Vox Lux, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, Brady, you are definitely trying to do things that are a little atypical, and I like that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, it is weirdly similar to the No Country conversation we had, where that was a big discussion point in that movie, where when you first watch it, there might be this sort of feeling of, that's like jumped a certain amount of time or moved or concluded in a way that maybe doesn't feel the most natural or is shifted. It just moves. But for me, I don't know, that felt like the right ending for me. I could probably, even without that epilogue, I feel like it would be a strong ending if it just ended there. But I'm glad it didn't do that, because otherwise I like the fact that the main character doesn't really get like this conclusive, more cliche, stereotypical ending that I feel like people are getting at when they're describing it as being more, beat by beat or, these things we've seen before. But the fact that it's his relative speaking for him and he doesn't actually get to use his own voice in the epilogue that's all about him, and he's kind of like fading away in this chair in the background.
Yeah.
And his relative is talking about how the design of this building that's been the project for most of the film was that inspired by the concentration camps that he escaped and survived was his influence. But we never actually see him describe that process from his perspective. It was all from
exactly
her. So you're not even hearing it. So it's like this character's always, even when he's revered by that point, when it flashes forward to 70s or 80s, he's like still being relegated to the background for someone else's perspective, which I thought was like an interesting take on this character who through the whole film is just so beat down. And there's this kind of hopelessness to him where he's just stuck in this situation that's so sad and empathetic, and he has these drug problems and this just dire relationship that he's trying to fix and do what he can with, that through no fault of his own has been like torn apart. And it's just so tragic fundamentally, and just the journey of following him as a character for me was so sort of emotionally involving and affecting. It really feels like it's saying something.
Yeah.
That whole epilogue it really complicates everything that comes before. But I think there are many who think that it simplifies it. And I think that reading of the film is not quite right. I feel like you're missing something, exactly because what you said, Alex, that, it's his niece who's speaking on his behalf, a retrospective on his work, and he's just silent in the corner, extremely old. Again, his work is being before, like, through the whole movie, it's all about like art for art's sake, and then we have his niece explaining, oh no, he was trying to preserve his love for his wife with the Holocaust, and that whole reveal is huge, but it also flattens everything and makes what he was trying to achieve kind of simplified. And then that final statement where she says right into the camera, it's sometimes with art, it's the destination, not the journey, or I forget exactly what it is she says, but that's the sentiment. And then it cuts right to what's the song? One for them, one for me, one for them, or something. Mm-hmm. It feels like a very like bitter, sardonic ending to the film.
Nice.
Yeah. That's like no, that really is not what the whole movie's leading up to. It's kind of a sad way to end the entire experience, and that's why I left the film being like, ouch, like that was a kind of an angry, bitter way to end this film. And I think the reason people love the first half and are colder on the second half is because it's a lot simpler, and a lot of those immigrant narrative tropes are there. That's like the striving, the climbing, wanting so much of that drive is wanting to bring his wife back to the States. And the second half is when she's there, and everything becomes harder because you're now facing the reality of living life, not this idealism of what can be achieved. So it's amazing. It's an awesome movie.
Yeah, that's a good point actually about that first half, where it does have a really strong hook with the Jones character not being in it for hours. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess once you get that payoff, then it's kind of got to rebuild up to some other kind of like crescendo of sorts. Because after that intermission, that gut punch and the way that information is revealed of that reunion, wow, I thought it was very powerful.
I love that. The photograph and involving the intermission, the photograph of like, it's like part of the plot. Like it's so perfect.
The intermission is storytelling.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
it's so clever.
Also worthy of note, the niece character speaking for him as he's now silent. It's very much the inverse of how things were throughout the entire rest of the film. Like the niece character barely talked. And despite that, despite her literally, I don't even know if she said an entire word before she was an adult. Like I don't remember a single line from her. But despite that, she had great screen presence, and she was a memorable character despite being like entirely silent. Every single character had huge screen presence.
Yeah, well, yeah, and her whole the whole stuff with Joe Alwyn, who's Guy Pearce's son, is just kind of harrowing and hard to watch.
Yeah, he's a scary character. It feels like one of those situations where everyone is just on such an A game that they're all elevating each other. And all these characters that come in and out, even if they're not in it too much, like the cousin character, the Alessandro Nivola character from kind of first act. I thought his performance was excellent too. And another kind of emotional reunion with him and Brody, I thought was like, God, this performance is, I don't even know these dudes. And I buy that they know each other and that there's all this just angst and hurt that this like community is sharing and bonding over and trying to help each other over. But then the gradual kind of unraveling of that is horrifying to kind of watch and indulge in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also love, I know we already mentioned the score, but I love how at the end of the film, it transforms and it's like, oh, wow, there's like, there was already a lot of range in terms of like tone and instrumentation and emotion in the score, despite it still having like themes that it reincorporated. But by the end of the film, it's like, oh, wow, like you're actually going for something very different. And this composer is like he's only ever done like 2 other projects. So now he's Oscar nominated, which is really cool.
Congratulations.
One of the people that worked on the film, is it the cinematographer? Someone's name is LOL, LOL. So I'm happy. Yeah. So I'm happy that they're going to get, LOL Crawley, cinematographer. Nice. So he's got a nom and they're going to have to say LOL at the Oscars. I wonder if they'll say LOL.
Yeah, I love when that synth kicked in. That was great.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also adding to like the tacky feel of like it feeling so wrong and off. In that part of like
such a contrast.
Tonally.
Yeah, and also the editing, it's very like montagey, the video aesthetic in
wipes.
Venice. Yep. It's just
it was
such
very
a
80s.
different feel, yeah.
Yeah, but what I appreciate, going back to that ending kind of, is how the film's exploring a lot of these kind of deep ideas about, identity, immigration, assimilation. But it doesn't feel like it's putting a strong kind of heavy-handed conclusion on it. Well, I guess that's the issue people have with the end, but it didn't feel like that to me. It feels like it's asking a lot of questions throughout the movie and exploring these questions, but kind of leaving it up to you to where to take it as far as like what is right and wrong, what should be done, yada yada yada.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also what is interesting too, because of the issue of Zionism, how it's addressed in the film. His family or his niece wants to go to Israel and are like, this is the only hope for our people. And I think that the movie doesn't provide an answer. And I think that's why it's a controversial aspect of the movie, especially now, because it kind of leaves it open to the viewers of what is really, going on here. Is that, what is it trying to say that she's the one speaking on his behalf and kind of framing his artistic process in the view of Israel and how his buildings were built and conceived after that point. So it's kind of sad. And I think that the movie is just trying to show that there are these different ways that the pure artistic process can be viewed and corrupted and used for maybe propagandistic purposes, but also just ideological means. Yeah.
And I mean, that's something that's consistent with reality around us, is like you kind of have different cultures and communities with entirely different versions of the same historical like events, or like, wow, that is a good point. Yeah, because that does kind of tie into that.
Kind of going to the dialogue in the film, which I think is incredible, and is partially how they're exploring some of these concepts and the way that through these characters. Felicity Jones's character mentions again and again that this huge project, this all-encompassing project, to Harrison Lee, the Guy Pearce character, is to him like getting a kitchen redone, and she keeps trying to remind that and hammer that home into Brody's character, to say like, maybe good. What are you sacrificing here? Like how much are you losing by doing this? We don't have to do this. We don't have to, but you are compelling yourself to do this despite everything you've been through. There's so much great dialogue in here. Like earlier on in the film where Brody and Pierce are talking about they're having these, how he describes these intellectually stimulating conversations again and again, and talking about how he asks Laszlo to explain why he cares about architecture, and his answer of like a cube being this sort of a self-explanatory thing. as his like quick just rebuttal of that. Is like, oh, this is clever, man, and it is intellectually stimulating. This is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
that whole conversation was incredible.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes.
Oh yeah, the way Pierce just delivers his lines and how they're interrupted, and he's just like, "Excuse me, I'm going to go back to our conversation." Our interesting conversation with important intellectuals.
I'm trying to think of another 3.5 hour long movie that I have wanted to watch again so quickly.
Yeah, I can't stop thinking. I'm tempted to see it again next week if it's still playing, which is crazy for a film like this.
I think it's getting a digital release on the 14th.
Oh, shortly?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, really? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll definitely see it again soon then.
I want to see it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like it demands a second viewing, and that's why I feel like I wish I could have seen it again before this conversation, but it's just not possible time-wise. It just has so much to offer.
Abandon your baby again.
I know. I mean, I'll just bring
the baby.
One thing, because this is another strong critique that people have with the movie, is that the strong decision it makes in the second half of the film, I think the notorious one that we all know about, Harrison rapes Laszlo. Mm-hmm. How did you guys feel with that being part of the movie? Because it felt like taking something metaphorical and making it very literal and visceral. Mm-hmm. And when I was watching the movie, I was horrified, but also part of me was pulled out going, do we really need this? Is this necessary to convey what's already been told to us? I don't know. How do you feel?
I think because of that payoff you get there.
I didn't get pulled out of the movie, but...
Yeah, I didn't find it distracting in that way, especially because of how sexuality and sex and this kind of thing is used throughout the movie in all sorts of different ways. It depicts aching loss, like love, connection, but also hatred and power, and the whole gambit of this kind of stuff. And yeah, I think because of the way that it concludes and wraps up with that Guy Pearce character, and especially you don't actually get any conclusion with him. He just kind of wanders off, and you never find out what happens to him, which I love the open-endedness of that. Yeah. But I personally was not distracted by that, considering kind of the dark places it's already gone and been to by that point already anyway.
Yeah. It was definitely a moment where I was like, oh shit. Definitely got an emotional reaction to it.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting it, that's for sure.
Yeah. I like that it kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't sure where it was going to go with it. I wasn't sure. I was like, even as it was happening and even after it happened, I was like, was that a thing that actually happened? And then later, called back to it. But yeah, I didn't find it wrong that was in the film or anything. Yeah, it definitely served its purpose, and it added to the narrative and emotional experience.
It was a strong choice, and I kind of had to respect it too, because even though in the moment I was kind of taken out of the film, I was like, you know what, like, you've carried me along this whole movie, that it is, I think it's important and necessary for a movie of this kind of like ambition to make bold choices. And I think another bold choice was having Felicity Jones confront Harrison and that dinner scene, which veered into just pure melodrama and could have just been horrible if done a different way, but I think that the movie pulls it off.
Yeah.
Opinion.
Yeah, very much
take
so.
it there. When she's dragged across the floor, that was very affecting for me. There's just such like a build up and release of tension at that point. Man, I don't even know where else you'd go outside of jumping decades.
But also, like Alex, you're saying how strange it is that Harrison disappears. Not strange, but it is unsettling, because you want this big release and he disappears, and we just get these shots of the building, the architecture, the surrounding landscape, and it almost feels like he's just dissolved into the building itself. Yeah. Which makes it even more sad and disturbing that he's known so well for this specific building. And can he even claim it as his own artistic thing when it's like, it's almost as if Harrison is the building himself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, it's also another thing to think about is Like the way that is kind of confronted in the film is, I guess, just another example of, a kind of trauma and suffering that Adrian Brody's character has gone through, but is also being relayed through another character and kind of being told, the confrontation is happening from his wife saying, you did this to him. It's not happening from him directly. And that very much ties into, the other ideas in the film, whether it be like the ending or if we're going to talk about like, I don't know, trauma from like the Holocaust or how generations are removed and we're all just kind of, talking about some sort of traumatic history of groups of people that, we didn't experience, but we're just kind of telling the story and relaying the information. I think it fits.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Very interesting.
Yeah, the way they communicate the kind of sense of loss in one of the earlier sex scenes between Felicity Jones and Adrian Brody, I thought that was another devastating scene. That was when she's talking about how I know what you did and I'm not jealous, and there's just this tragedy to it because of the nature of like what tore them apart and everything that came with that, and just the turmoil to get back to that point was like so. I don't know. I keep saying it's emotional, but multiple points it was really overwhelmingly emotional for me.
It is, especially the way he reacts to her being in a wheelchair and not, the injuries that she didn't tell him the extent to which she was injured, and how he like treats her poorly because of it, because he is so overwhelmed by guilt that it's like he almost has to like, it's like this weird reaction. Like he can't even look at her. He's in so much anguish that he didn't know what she'd been through in that sense. So, it's just, God, it's incredible. Although I will say during that scene on the soundtrack, I love that the track used is just called Hand Job. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and there's one called Porn as well on the soundtrack.
Nice.
The porn scene.
Yeah, I've been listening to the soundtrack. Like I can't help it. It's so good.
Yeah. I think my takeaway is that I want to try opiates. That's
the takeaway.
Yeah. They seem fun.
Definitely.
Get on those old school drugs. Yeah.
I like how he asks his friend for more. He's like, "No, I quit." that moment for me was like, "Oh wow!" Like just kind of acknowledging that another character in close vicinity has already kind of like dealt with his own struggle. Just been like, "Okay, this is bad for me. I was an addict. I found my way out of it." And then Adrian Brody's character is just still struggling with this. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, I enjoyed that character too, him and his son. I didn't expect to stick around for so much of the movie, but I'm glad he did. They did.
What do you think about AI?
Oh, yeah. I was just about to bring that up too.
We gotta talk about it.
Yeah. So there's like two controversies, right? There's the Hungarian accent tweaks, and there were claims of some buildings being generated in Midjourney that apparently is not true.
Now, I looked this up, and I can tell you exactly. What was and wasn't in the film. So the editor, who is also Hungarian, wound up using AI audio software to replace essentially what amounts to some syllables only within the sequences where Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones are speaking actual Hungarian, which is not the majority of the film. It's only like within those like letters that that he's like reading to her, basically. So just in some transitionary sequences, and then they didn't generate full sentences. They essentially just used the software in a way where a native Hungarian speaker could correct tiny portions of the parts of of words in the sentences and give a more authentic pronunciation so that the film retains its sense of authenticity and accuracy in a way that native Hungarian speakers wouldn't be thrown off, right? So I consider that to be totally okay. It's the equivalent to like auto-tune, which, by the way, there's plenty of nominated performances this year for musicals part of the performance is singing. So if we're going to say that Adrian Brody is not like, oh, we can't nominate him now because there were tweaks to his performance, like, okay, that happened for, every single musical nomination this year. And if you don't think that, then you have no understanding of how films are made, especially with audio editing. And then the only other instance, there's two other instances of AI usage in this film. Some of the architectural blueprints shown at the end of the film in the 80s type section were generated, although I'm not sure if they were generated and then like inspired and then, redrawn, hand-drawn, or just actually generated. But, according to the original interview that this claim is sourced from, it amounted to about 4 seconds of screen time, maybe, in the film. And then the third and final usage of AI is an interview with the production designer, and she says that they used Midjourney to generate hundreds of different images of brutalist architecture to help inspire and use as reference for what they would later have artists hand draw and appear as, actual buildings in the film in the background. So anybody saying online, like, oh, I thought they looked AI generated because of how the texture looked. That's not true. They didn't AI generate buildings and throw them into the movie. Those are hand drawn, but there are some designs that used Midjourney as a source for inspiration to basically retain the same brutalist type architecture and, create ideas within that framework. My personal opinion, AI is a tool. It can be used ethically. It can be used unethically. For a movie that's, clearly a $10 million budget movie that is not every single cent you can see on the screen and it looks like a $40 million movie. I don't see how this was used unethically, honestly. It's not, some cynical, Disney, like, oh, can we just not pay the actor and we'll just like AI an entire performance instead? Like, this isn't one of those issues. I know that people treat it as a buzzword and people get really, I don't know what the right word is, overly concerned and overreacting of just anything using AI ever. But when you talk to industry people and actual filmmakers and actual artists, it's a tool. It's a tool. And it helped this film get made. This is an instance where this helped the actual art happen. So if that helps artists, and this is an instance where I believe it did, then I see no issue with it.
I guess the argument against the Midjourney one in particular, because I don't really have an issue with the Hungarian accent, things like that. I would never obviously notice that. Not knowing the language, but I guess if they're generating what is effectively concept designs or concept art, I guess that's replacing the job of someone who, or a group of people that might have done that and been paid for it before. But then we're getting into this situation where is there a legal obligation to mention your use of AI? Does it like have to be in the credits of films? And like, how are we actually finding out about this outside of like reports on it? Like the same thing happened with Late Night with The Devil. That was like a controversy at the time too with those title cards.
Late Night at the Devil, another, by the way, very low budget movie.
With The Devil.
That was an instance where like you could tell by watching the film if you're paying attention, sort of thing. Like I didn't notice it on my viewing because I watched it at a festival before like the whole controversy. But then seeing some of the screenshots online, I'm like, okay, yeah, that does look. Yeah, I can see the AI-ism in this image. For this film in particular, like it literally nobody would know without these interviews. And these interviews are happening, and these artists, the editor and the production designer, they're talking about them in a way where like they're clearly not like terminally online people, right? They're industry people, and they're talking about it in the same way that they would talk about using autotune or talk about, any other part of the artistic process, where it's like literally a tool, right? So the production designer, in the way that she mentioned it in the interview, she did use the words like, it's as if I had 100 different employees, artists, handing me all of these different selections to choose from. And at the end of the day, like, there is still, in my opinion, for that, there is still a human element. You know, like, it's not like she just typed in cool building and then just like pasted it into the film. There was a very direct intention for the types of things that she wanted to be able to show. And then there's also a human element in terms of the intention of choosing which designs out of the hundreds, maybe thousands of generations that of deciding like, okay, this one looks great. Okay, I like the idea of this one. And then, you know, another layer, another step is the hiring of artists that hand painted those designs and tweaked them. At the end of the day, the production designer has the final say in terms of what things look like in the film and how the final product exists, right? So they are the human voice that is to blame for if something looks good or something looks bad. My concern with AI is mostly just that things will look bad, right? And sure, there is also concern about, you know, replacing jobs and the more ethical concerns as well. But every single time I hear about those concerns, they seem to be more of an issue with like capitalism than AI. You know, like right. So I don't know.
I'm just concerned. Are they being by these dramas gradually popping up more and more? Are they incentivized the studios then to hide it more? Because there must be AI usage going on in these films that are coming that we just don't know about because no one's talked about it, or it's films no one cares about.
Yeah,
like it's definitely happening.
That is a worthy frustration to note. Is that I guarantee you, in the exact same way that like we see this current for the past like 10 years or whatever, we keep seeing these buzzwords in the marketing campaigns like, we used actual planes and they weren't CG. And then you look at how the movie was made and it's like, oh, you used tons of CG, right? Then this was just a marketing thing and you essentially lied. We're going to see that exact same thing. Like, we used no AI for that. We used a real thing. And then you'll find out like, oh, okay, AI was actually used in some way. It's moving to the point where it's going to be like an industry standard and not like generating the whole movie and having no artistic element whatsoever, but in the way that the editor was, you know, helping tweak certain parts of their performances, right? We have tools available at our disposal that make the process easier for artists. If it's being used in that way, where artists are able to make their art easier and better, more cost effective, without sacrificing quality, that is pro art. Right? If that's supposed to be the conversation, a lot of these people getting real concerned about it are doing so under the guise of like pro art, right? So you have to, I would argue, you would have to look at each individual situation on a case-by-case basis and be able to determine like whether or not an instance is pro art or anti art, you know?
I mean, I do think that people have a point in being kind of strongly against, like, knee-jerk reaction to any instance of AI, especially in movies or in any artistic medium that they like, because it is a creep. Like, it is a growing trend in the industry that feels inevitable. And when things feel inevitable, like they're just going to happen, it becomes like all you can do is scream into the void of, okay, let's make it known that we're really against this. And I think that in the terms of The Brutalist, the reason why it's so controversial and has garnered up so much attention is because, well, first off, it's very clearly an Oscars hit job. You know, I think that it was deployed very effectively to tear down. I mean, this is like well known that this is what happens with movies, right? When they come up to the Oscars, there's controversies that come out, deployed effectively to get voters not to vote for those movies. So if there is now this muddying concern over The Brutalist, Adrian Brody, his entire performance is AI, actually, you know, like that's stuff I've seen online that people are saying, like, it's an AI performance. That's, I think, based on how you've described it and what I've read, it's incredibly disingenuous. I think that in the case of the not auto-tune, but it is like auto-tune, the way his certain vowels in his Hungarian accent when he's speaking Hungarian, like that's a very different thing. And that's why it's so hard, because AI has become a marketing term everywhere. You see tech companies using stuff that they've been using for years, slap the word AI on it and like, hey, it's AI actually. And then people are like, this fucking sucks. Because we don't like AI. And I completely side with the people who are like, fuck AI. We don't want any of that involved in our movies. And I think it's definitely better to be more cautious and to avoid just anything involving it. But at this point, there are certain tools, exactly like you're saying, Adam, that are kind of unavoidable in the industry that people are using more and more. And there are definitely 100% all these other massive studios making $200 million movies are using all of these tools and way more and cutting as many corners as possible.
In more cynical ways.
Yeah, the Brutalist is not the problem here. Like, it's just
not at all.
Because of the idea of hypocrisy, because the movie's about art, capital A art, that people are, hammering down on this. It's kind of the perfect hit job on this movie, the idea of AI being involved. So the issue of the Midjourney, though, is a little more muddy, and I wish that it hadn't been used at all. But based on, what Brady Corbett has said, that there's not actually any AI generated images in the movie, I have to go with what he said there. So, it just feels like an issue that's going to keep coming up over and over and over, the more it's used. And it sucks that it has to be an issue at all. And I wish that the industry as a whole would find an ethical guidelines for the use of it.
Yeah.
I think what Adam said, it is an economic thing. I feel like first and foremost, like what you said, Jake, it's not the Brutalist in and of itself. It's more of this bigger, we've opened a Pandora's box in the last few years, and now you can't stop it, whether you like it or not. Like, this is just the situation we're in now. And of course, when these films, not the Brutalist aside, are having these budgets that are just so out of whack, so out of control, the economic solution to that is some tech thing like this. And I don't like it, but I also, I love a film like The Brutalist that uses it, so I don't really know where to stand as far as I don't like the idea they use Midjourney to generate these things that a team of humans could have been paid fairly for doing their work and their passion. But this is something that's just going to happen again and again now, more and more. And I just hope it's, or would like some kind of, like on TikTok or whatever, if AI has been used, there's a little kind of thing in the corner saying it is or includes AI in some form or is an AI video. I would like to see maybe some legal thing where in the credits they have to mention like what has been used or something like this. I don't know how that works as of now, but it's a conversation we have to have more and more.
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure if we looked through every single credit in the film, we would see a list of every tool that they used, like every software. I'm pretty sure that is just a standard thing to do, but I guess most people don't read that, and they probably these are all stemming from the interviews, basically.
Yeah. Exactly.
In terms of it being a hit job, sure, maybe, and I agree that is a thing that kind of happens during award seasons. I don't know if this particular one is necessarily being propagated by the teams behind the competing films or just online fans of the other films or just people trying to, start drama or whatever. From what I can tell, I don't know. I'm in contact with a lot of industry people. This just seems to be a very terminally online thing. I don't think that any of the Academy voters, 0.1% maybe, are going to look at this controversy and be like, oh, that delegitimizes the performance, especially the performance. Again, you're correct in saying that it is more of an issue with the Midjourney production design thing, right? That one we can have an actual substantive conversation about and a back and forth debate. But yeah, in terms of Adrian Brody's performance, there's zero people in the Academy that are gonna look at that and think he doesn't deserve the performance as much as if it were used. You would have to have a fundamental misunderstanding of how films are made to think that some tweaking is something that delegitimizes a performance. You have to have never seen any behind the scenes footage for any movie, never heard a director talk about any movie. You would have to be absolutely misinformed about how films are made to think that would be an issue.
It's a tough subject. I mean, it's very.
No, it's not.
Mean, it's actually very simple.
I mean, yeah, it's only tough because people freak the fuck out about it. Yeah, I don't know.
I think people are justified to freak out. I think that I get why people get upset, because it is, like you guys were saying, it's a Pandora's box. We don't know where it's going to lead, and already some of the lamest, worst, money hungry people in the world are incorporating it to get the artistic process out of art, which it's crazy. We have so much beautiful technology, and I think in the case of the Brutalist, they're using the technology to create beautiful art, and it's amplifying the art and improving it possibly. But there are so many instances now we see where it's just trying to remove the human element out of art, and it's shitty, and you're just seeing it everywhere. I mean, Google, you can't Google something without getting a million AI images. It's just
Gemini.
I get why people are upset.
I get why people are concerned. When I say freaking out, I'm not talking about people that are concerned or vocalizing their concerns or even passionately vocalizing their concerns. I'm talking about people that they hear the word, or they would hear an opinion like mine where I'm saying like, hey, as long as there is a human element and it's actually helping artists, they disregard everything that's being said, and it's just like, oh, you're in this camp. It's like the Amelia Perez conversation where it's like, okay, I'm going to bring this up on every single fucking comments section for every video you make from now on, because it's like people treat it as though you've like committed some sort of harm towards a person, like you've done actually something wrong, when it's literally just like, I don't know. I feel like I have a very lukewarm, like rational perspective on it, but I don't know. That's what I mean. It's
a case-by-case basis, really.
It should be.
I mean, you can really only view it based on like the context. I mean, because there's so many different tools. What even is AI? The definitions are wide-ranging, and all sorts of companies are using it as a marketing tool. So, yeah, you have to just look at it from a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. We'll see where the technology goes. I personally feel as though there's always going to be a market and a thirst, a hunger for authenticity, for human art, right? So in the same way that, like, sure, we're concerned about taking the human element out, and all we're left with is just like cynical, vapid things that feel like they're made by machines. I'm sorry, that's like most Pixar movies right now. I'm sorry, that's like that. We kind of have that already when we have so many fucking films that like the plot is just written by committee and test audiences, and like we were talking about this shit years and years ago, where there were studios that were feeding information into algorithms and using that to decide who to cast in their films, what types of story, right? Like, this shit is already happening, whether people notice it or not. And here we are supporting a film like The Brutalist, where it does feel authentic. There is a human element. It's a story being told by an actual artist that is making bold choices and has something to say. And I will continue supporting films like this, right? So if other people...
The Brutalist isn't the problem.
The Brutalist isn't the problem. And the people that a lot of, if the general public doesn't want this to happen, then you can start by not already rewarding movies that are essentially doing that anyway, right? You can start by, not soying over fucking Alien Romulus, right? Like you're already rewarding movies that are essentially AI. So if you want that kind of change where actual artists are being promoted and rewarded, then you need to start by voting with your wallet now and show that you actually like that kind of thing, right? So, Alien Romulus was just fucking algorithmically generated anyway,
Oh, jeez, that was way worse than whatever the fuck was going on here.
Yeah. All right, that was a great conversation.
Yeah.
We didn't do ratings.
Oh yeah. I gave it a 9, but I can give it a 10. Fuck it, let's do it.
Whoa.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I think this is now competing with The Substance for my favorite of the year. I'll have to see this a second time.
Nice.
But yeah, it's definitely very strong in my memory, in my mind. I'm thinking about it, and I'm wanting to return to it, which is a great sign.
Yeah, the fact I already want to rewatch this, and I saw it yesterday, and it's 3.5 hours long, I think says a lot already. I also find it interesting that both the writers on the film, neither are Jewish, which I think is an interesting perspective, and it still feels authentic despite that. Yeah, this is quite a triumph, I feel. 10 out of 10 from me.
10 out of 10. I think we're all unified here.
I thought you came here to argue. I thought that's why we got you on the
Yeah,
podcast.
hell, man.
Actually, oh, fuck you guys. 1 out of 10.
Yes.
AI use, no thank you. Also, that accent sucked, and Felicity Jones was stupid. She should have just, he should have just crowdfunded the building, you know? Just do it himself. Get some patrons. Patreon.
Kickstarter, yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of a baby movie, if you think about it. I think it was for babies.
Do you think your baby would enjoy The Brutalist?
Can we get a review from your baby?
I'll ask him. When it's on digital, I'll just hold him 2 inches from the screen and then just watch the psychological damage seep through him for the rest of the years of his life.
Clockwork Orange style. Just some eye drops.
The first Brutalist designed baby. It's the Brutalist baby.
Yeah. All right, perfect. All right, we have a recommendation. It's my first Robert Bresson film. And it's a donkey movie. It's inspired many other things, like EO, like Donkey from the Shrek films. Eddie Murphy.
That's the main one.
Was very, very inspired. I looked up how to pronounce the title, so I'm going to give it my best shot. Hasard Bazinga is the film from 1966. I think I did pretty good.
Good.
I actually didn't look it up. I'm not even going to try to say it. You guys
Really?
fucking read the title. Read the title, and you figure it out.
We've already made our opinions on the French known, so...
Yeah. It's
Balthazar.
anti-French podcast.
Yeah. Except Quebec, which is now cool.
Al Hazard. Yeah. Al Hazard Balthazar.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, the general consensus among Bresson fans, a lot of people consider this to be his masterpiece, but they also consider it to be like less accessible than some of his other films. Some people were like, Adam, I'm not sure if you're going to like this. You should start with this other one. I'm like, oh, I didn't fucking know.
Interesting.
But I did like it. I liked it actually quite a lot. I like this very much. What I knew at one point and then forgot about up until recently is I believe this is Michelle Haneke's favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
And watching that, it was pretty apparent. There's a lot of like kind of Haneke-isms in this film almost. He's used some of the same music as well. I think it was, what's that composer's name? I wrote it down. Schubert, I think. With some of the piano classical music. Sherbert. Yeah. Very weird movie. Kind of bold and interesting. Very, very well executed, in my opinion. What did y'all think? And I'm very interested in what you have to say, Jake, because you're a bit more familiar with Bresson.
Yeah.
Bresson.
Robert Bresson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a huge Bresson phase back in the day, probably right around when I was obsessing over Tarkovsky, because Tarkovsky was a huge fan of Bresson. I believe they both won the Palme d'Or for the same film one year, I think for L'Argent and Tarkovsky's Nostalgia. So there's a picture of them on stage with Orson Welles. That's kind of cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I think the first one I saw was A Man Escaped, which is a pretty accessible one. It's a very straightforward, prison escape movie. And I think that his theory and style of filmmaking works really well in that atmosphere. So I think that's why people talk about it as a great entrance film. I saw this film. I saw Balthazar later on, and I was a little less impressed. I get that people say it's his masterpiece, but I also think this is the one that people are aware of, if they're aware of anything at all, because it's the donkey movie.
Yeah.
I watching it. I think this is my second or third time watching it. I gained new appreciation for it. It is really bold in how it tells its story, even just plot wise. It feels way more plot heavy than most of Bresson's films. It is a lot more literary, I would say, and it feels like it has so many characters. It's almost hard to keep track of who everyone is at points, which is so different from a movie like Pickpocket, where it's just different. So I don't know. I really like it, but I would rate it lower compared to his other films for sure.
Okay. What do you think, Alex?
Well, I'm gonna have to be the hating ass hater on this one. I did not dig this.
Nice.
With this insomnia I've been having, this might be my sleep aid. I was like struggling to stay awake for this. I did not enjoy this at all. Like you're saying about like this is the one plot wise. What is the plot? Can you tell me? What is the plot? There's like a donkey walking around.
So it focuses on the donkey's perspective, kind of. Like it doesn't go as hard as something like EO, which is like taking this concept and like going to its logical extreme almost. And it's kind of like a, like each interaction that the donkey has with people, and it kind of gets like passed around for various different reasons. You know, you get a different owner here and then it'll escape, and then it's like, okay, it's in the circus, and then back here, blah, blah, blah. Every kind of interaction is essentially met with some kind of like mistreatment, and people are generally unkind to the donkey, and he's kind of just, it's as if we're the audience experiencing the film through the donkey character, kind of just being left to not only observe, but kind of like take the abuse from these other characters, and in a way where we're kind of just like helplessly watching and unable to change the nature of human beings. And then if you want to get into like the details of the plot, they're essentially so the female lead is like the daughter. There's this drama going on between her father and her love interest's father. There were some details of the plot that I definitely had to like look up after watching the film, because the intricacies of like, okay, why do they think this guy stole money, or like one of the characters, according to the wiki plot summary, had died when he fell off the donkey. I'm like, oh, I didn't even catch that.
Oh, really?
And like the motivations for like the bad boy Gerard, according to the wiki, he was jealous of the donkey. He was jealous of the affection that the female lead was giving the donkey, and that kind of motivated certain things that he did in the film. But yeah, I do like, especially in terms of like thinking about rewatching this film, I do like that there are elements of the story that aren't as explicit, and that there is a bit more to like discover and I guess fine tune in terms of like the literal sense of the things that are happening on a second watch. Yeah. There is definitely a consistent way of presenting information in the sense that a lot of things are more implied than explicit, like the sexual assault that wasn't shown, but were left to be like, oh, okay, that's probably what happened. Yeah, and so that can cause the film to be a bit more difficult to get a literal interpretation of some of the events, especially on the first watch. But especially after reading the wiki plot summary after watching the film, I'm like, okay, yeah, there's more to get out of this too.
I understand all that what you're saying, but my kind of issue is like, why is everyone in this movie this stone-faced stiff robot. Like, I just don't care about anybody in this movie. I can't connect with anything that's happening. I know it's a me problem, and I'm in the minority with this, and it just didn't sit with me right after watching it. So I thought, I'm going to watch another movie from Bresson. So I picked A Man Escaped, which was from 10 years earlier, and I loved it. I actually adored it. I thought it was incredible. I loved it from beginning to end, and I thought that kind of more... He works with a lot of non-actors, is that right? From what I was reading. So maybe that's what was the clash in the Balthazar for me, where I just felt like there was just no hook for me. I was like pulling my hair out by half an hour. I just really was finding it difficult to connect with anything on any emotional level.
Sounds like you hate donkeys.
Yeah, I guess. Whereas I really was compelled from the opening scene of A Man Escaped. It's got an amazing hook. It's, as Jake said, it's simple and easy to follow. And maybe, as you were saying, Balthazar is a bit more of a, I don't know, maybe I should have visited this after watching some of his other films so I can kind of deconstruct what he's playing with and how his style has evolved and what he's doing with this. But I found it very inaccessible and extremely dull. And it felt longer than The Brutalist for me, and it's an hour and a half long. I was really going insane.
Well, I think that your point about the acting is really interesting and made me think about why the A Man Escaped worked so much better for you, because this movie, when you think about it, it is like a bunch of melodrama plots. You have like the biker gang, and like the corrupted youth, and it's also tackling a lot of like biblical imagery, and maybe that's why I very, very much like this movie, but I don't love it as much as others because it is maybe his most religious movie, or at least one of them. It's really seeking like this kind of transcendent theme within Balthazar. And the acting style that he uses. Okay, so the acting, his whole theory about like movies, and I don't know how much you guys know about this, but I did some extra research last night because it's been a while since I'd dived into this. But he has a book of interviews, Bresson, and I went to the section where he talks about Balthazar, and his whole theory of acting is, and filmmaking in general, is that it needs to be separate from all the other art forms. And basically all other films are bad because they are mimicking theater. And he has this thing where he's like, I fucking hate theater. He doesn't hate theater, but he hates theater in film. And he sees acting as separate from cinematography, which is what he calls film. He said it's cinematography, it's a separate art form, and needs to be treated as such. And so he sees photography, theater, acting, all these different art forms and mediums. He wants to separate them from cinematography. And he believes that cinematography is about rhythm, and it's not even about the visual image. So he says it at one point, let's see, this is in one of his interviews, that he likes to flatten the image like you'd flatten fabric with an iron. He says they aren't beautiful images. He says that in this art form, which puts pressure on the image, the viewer must abandon his idea of the image. He has to abandon the idea completely and instead get caught in a rhythm that is capable of transporting him. Never in no other art has rhythm been so important, etc., etc. So it's like he's extracting all these things that we expect from movies, and it creates this alien feeling, which is why I think A Man Escaped works better, because it's a prison movie. It makes sense that they all look stone-faced and aren't expressive at all.
The stakes are clear.
Yeah, and this particular film, where it's about all these heightened emotions, it feels very off-putting. And another movie of his that I don't particularly love is called The Devil Probably, which has a similar issue, in my opinion, where at a certain point, like, our brains are so trained on expecting actors to act. And when you are watching a movie and just watching people stand there and move and do things, I mean, he called his actors models, I'm pretty sure. Like, he did not want them to act at all. And it's I have to respect, like, that kind of, like, mid-century, I'm a capital A artist, this is what film is and should be. Like, I'm so happy that we have artists like Bresson who want to push things into this limit that no one else is going to do.
Yeah.
I get that within reason. I just feel like with someone like Ken Loach, who does something similar with these non-actors and getting these incredible performances out of them, like in something like Kes from 3 years after Balthazar, that just works for me and I have an emotional connection to what's going on.
Sure.
Whereas, yeah, I just found it. You mentioned the alien thing. I noted that down as one of my notes. It feels like if an alien or robot was trying to depict human beings and failing, is what I said. Yeah, I really was finding it hard to connect.
I did find like the way that characters kind of reacted or interacted with certain things happening in the film kind of like Alien, or like, you know, like people's lack of reaction to things that would, you know, in real life constitute a real reaction. But I did, you know, from my perspective, I did find that to be like a very intentional part of the style. And I do feel like it does kind of connect even with certain lines in the film, like when she is trying at the end, when she's been abused by so many people and, you know, finds comfort in her love interest character that's not, you know, the abusive bad boy Gerard, but Jacques, who's, you know, finally accepting her and giving her what it seems like she would want to hear in a way that he's not judging her, and she's, you know, still hung up and kind of almost embracing in a negative, toxic way her own shortcomings and her own traumas. Like she literally says out loud like that she's barely able to feel anything anymore. And I feel like that sense of just being like beaten down to a point where you become kind of numb to things, I feel like that does fit with the style of what it's portraying in the film, and also kind of what it's getting at in terms of like showcasing humanity in this way. And you know, she even said in relation to the character who like his father that is losing the farm and all of their money, she even says in relation to his character like that he's essentially holding his shortcomings and trauma too close to himself, and he's putting his pride above everything. Yeah, so I feel like there is like an intent there that does fit with the style and the themes of the film.
I feel like, yeah, that element would have worked for me if maybe it was restricted more to that character and the people around her felt like humans. Because there's like the scene towards the end where there's a woman crying, and it's like, what? You're not crying. That's not what someone's crying looks like. Well, like, what is going on here? So I find it very hard to emotionally connect with that. It feels very cold and uninviting to me.
I like it.
In a way, that kind of reminds me of Hitchcock. I was kept thinking of Hitchcock watching this because there's a lot of close-ups on hands, on images, on bodies. Like, he's more interested in what things than in actual faces, it seems, a lot of the times. And in a way, like, I watch certain Hitchcock films, and a lot of the performances feel kind of stiff too. And what makes it work for me is the editing, the rhythm, how it's combined to an effect that's like different from just admiring a performance. And I don't know if I totally buy his theory of like performing on film and how you can try to extract a real reality if you get someone who isn't performing, because I believe that we're all performing every day in our lives.
True.
And certain actors that he uses or models that he uses are more expressive than others naturally. And I think that they are just better performers actually, because like the main character, what's her name, Marianne or something, she is actually kind of a good actress. Like, the way she emotes in her eyes and everything. And then other characters, you see them and it just looks like they're awkwardly standing in a room, and you aren't getting a sense of presence. So although like I have to admire him for like being so dedicated to this idea, it does work better in some performances and in some movies than others, I think.
Here's a quote from Robert Eger, Roger Ebert, related to this. He says, "The actors portray lives without informing us how to feel about them. Forced to decide for ourselves how to feel, forced to empathize, we often have stronger feelings than if the actors were feeling them for us." Very interesting.
I almost feel the complete inverse to that. If it's all like the same flatline like style of emotion, I could project, I guess, anything onto it if I wanted, but then it just wasn't interesting to me or compelling on that level.
Yeah,
as a narrative, as a hook, I guess as an experiment, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I'm more with. I was reading about Bergman's opinion on this movie. He's more on my side. I didn't really get it. Where his argument was more that was an issue with the donkey angle, where I don't think that's an issue at all. He was saying that donkey's boring, humans are always interesting. It should be more about the humans. Whereas my thing is just more like, I'm fine with the donkey movie, but just make the donkey movie like interesting or entertaining for me. Like I was picking up on the religious symbolism and all of this stuff going on, and what you're saying about this perspective of the donkey and what it's saying about humanity. But man, was I bored. Ooh, I was pulling my hair out.
Did you watch EO?
No, I haven't seen EO.
No, I haven't seen it either.
It's literally just the letter E, the letter O, and that's the title.
I've seen it on IMDb. I've never seen it.
It's good. I think you might you would probably enjoy that more than this, just based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
That was
the Donkey's the best actor. Donkey's the best actor in this movie.
He can do math
because he's. Oh, you know what's funny? In the interviews, I read that this dude is so committed to like non-actors that he didn't want a donkey that knew how to do things. He was like, I don't want a trained donkey. I want just a plain old donkey who doesn't know shit. And for the scenes with doing the math, he actually wanted a donkey who knew how to like tap his leg like that. Mm-hmm. So they had to pause production. According to him, they had to pause production for like 2 months to train the donkey to do that.
That's funny.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, just very dedicated to the bit.
How do you feel about the way animals are treated in this film?
It was the style at the time. It was the 60s. People had onions on their belts and,
Yeah, I didn't love that angle.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly points in the film where the donkey is being made uncomfortable, especially, in the end of the circus scene, people are like pulling it in different directions. I'm like, okay, this isn't movie magic here. You're just kind of being abusive.
Yeah, or like tying a smoking bit of newspaper to its tail, and it's like kicking around trying to get it off. Or there's like a polar bear in a cage, a tiger in a cage, and these sort of things. It's like, don't like that in the same way I don't like it in Werner Herzog's films.
Yeah.
But as you say, the attitudes were slightly different at the time, or depending on the country too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, didn't Tarkovsky like kill a horse on screen in Andrei Rublev?
Spoilers, but probably not.
he didn't go on screen and kill the horse, but it happened on screen.
Yeah, so. I mean, Michelle Haneke has done a lot of those things. What's funny about in Michelle Haneke's films, the most explicit, like, oh, you just killed an animal scenes are done in ways that are like literally the most humane way possible. But like like if you've ever been on a farm, if you know what farmers do, right? You're like, okay, this is the most humane way of killing an animal. Like fucking, one of his films, they chop a chicken's head off. It's like, okay, that's just what you do. One of the films, they do the nail gun into the pig's head. I'm like, oh, that's literally like, okay. People when you buy meat, you're doing the same thing. Okay, like,
yeah. I think a lot of the controversy is just people having to see that because so many people consume pounds and pounds of meat and don't ever think that, oh, this is a dead,
detached from
animal.
We're disproportionately detached from our meals.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know what the fuck we're putting in our bodies.
And we love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is a legitimate criticism to bring up. It's obviously, people's sensitivities to that have increased over the years, and I would prefer for it to be movie magic and not just you hurt an animal. in my opinion.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe AI will fix that, actually.
AI, kill a horse for me, please.
I mean, okay, 20 years in the future, if it looks flawless, that's a good excuse. You know, we want to have a real looking horse killing in the film. And we'll see, you know, if AI makes it look real, then fuck it. That's more ethical.
I mean, Craven had some pretty good lions in it. I thought that was great.
No,
true.
Great.
It didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very I actually found myself kind of surprised with how like into the film I was, because it didn't feel slow to me. Like it was a nice like hour and a half long film, you know, that it never stayed in one setting for too long. I found that there was like a good variety of setting, like things were progressing, and I was just very into the style of narrative. I wasn't anticipating more of a traditional narrative, that's for sure. And yeah, maybe a lot of this is just because I like Hanukkah so much, and I've seen like almost every one of his films, that like I could see a lot of that in this film. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get what you're doing. I get that you're being like kind of subversive and you're doing like an art thing here. And especially, you know, when we're in this time period, like in the 60s, it is something to appreciate even more, somebody going against the grain in this way, when, you know, in terms of producing a film or getting a film seen, you are kind of putting a bit more on the line. There is more of a risk to doing that, instead of just like, I don't know, being able to plop your film on Netflix and shoot it with an iPhone or whatever.
And I don't know, going into this, it's not even like I was anticipating a standard film by any means. Like when it was recommended on the subreddit, I saw the top comment, warn, you know, anticipate the awkwardness. Like there is some strange kind of style to Bresson if you're starting here. So I was kind of expecting that going in, and was, I don't know, hoping for more of a, I don't know, like a lobster type thing where there's like some humor to it, or just something I can connect with. But yeah, I just was not picking up what they putting down.
You're a donkey hater.
I think what's like great is that, and what's off-putting about his style too, is that he's really trying to like not stylize things, which I believe is an impossible thing, because you're like, yeah, how do you not, like, the fact that you're trying not to have a style is a style.
Is a style, yeah.
You know, these flat images, everything is shot from like the waist up, and very, I don't like, not super engaged. Like you're just kind of observing things,
cold,
almost passively, and like the thing that he seems, because he was a painter, I guess he started out as a painter, and I feel like the movie is at its best when it's just focused on the donkey and those very expressive eyes, and seeing the world from his perspective, the kind of extensive, very like rambling, like the donkey goes here to here to here, these different families, how do these people connect, I'm less interested in. Funny enough, I was able to draw comparisons to my favorite Bresson film is his final movie he made in 1983, L'Argent, which is all about how a counterfeit bill passes from people to people, similarly to how Balthazar is passed from group to group to group. It's just, but it's a very negative film compared to this. Like, this is kind of a spiritual film. L'Argent is really depressing and cynical, and is about capitalism ultimately, and the dark side of human nature. So I don't know. I mean, Alex, maybe you'd like that one a little more. That's
part of what I'm glad I watched A Man Escaped, because I didn't want to write him off as a director. Just with how people talk about him, what I've read about him, it would seem shallow to do that. But I was torn between watching A Man Escaped or the one you just mentioned, actually. And a lot of his other films look a lot more interesting, just from a premise perspective or a setting or a hook or whatever. But doesn't Balthazar have a companion piece too?
I believe Mouchette is considered.
Yeah.
Mouchette. Which I think Mouchette is the better film, personally. I think Mouchette is... Yeah, because what is kind of rambling and different about Balthazar is really feels, again, like more straightforward with Mouchette. Also, it's, I would say, I don't know, maybe it'd be easier for you to identify with the girl in Mouchette rather than the donkey, so I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it too, but I remember definitely preferring that one.
Machete.
Interesting.
Machete.
Yeah, it's. I'm interested in checking out more of his works for sure. I have a feeling like I'll connect with them, just based on this. Even though to a lot of people, it seems like this one is kind of like a stand-out film. I get why people would say it's less accessible, but I vibed with what it was doing, and I like, very similarly to the Brutalist. I like that I'm kind of like thinking about it after the film is over. And I feel like there's more to explore, and I feel like there's more to get out of a second watch. Thinking about why things were presented in this particular way, especially like story structure and narrative choices. Mm-hmm. I thought that the, there's parts of the sound design that like didn't gel with me, like some of the like narrative, like people talking, you'd kind of hear like the background audio like fade in, like some of the white noise or whatever. But other than that, there's a lot of really great, like both atmospheric sound design choices and also Foley, like really good Foley for 1966.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, the sound in his movie, especially his later movies, I think it becomes more crisp. L'Argent, especially, is the sounds in that are so, makes me think of when we were talking about No Country for Old Men and that little like candy wrapper and the focus on that, like the door handles opening, the sound of feet on the ground, just these little things. The bells at the end of the film are just kind of really beautiful when you hear it compared to the what is going on in the film. And another thing I saw in that interview book is Bresson said he would much rather communicate something through a sound than through an image. And there's the sequence where the kids put some like grease or oil on the road and the car crashes because of it. Mm-hmm. And I think it was in an interview with Jean-Luc Godard, and he asked him, like, why did you just show the first car crash and not the second? And he says, well, I already showed the first car crash. I thought it'd be repetitive to show the second one, so I just had the sound there, and I much prefer the sound. So I don't know, like you have to really get in tune with that, like the way he thinks of movies as like not even about image, because I think we are so like, at least I'm always focused on the image first. And to him, it's like that's trying to de-emphasize the importance of what you're actually seeing. I don't know.
Very interesting. I do gravitate a lot towards like sound and sound design, which many comments say that I don't have any legitimacy talking about it anymore because I liked some of the songs in Emilia Perez, but
Yeah.
Well.
Expertise revoked.
Yep. Can't trust what I say about movies anymore.
Nope.
And
never again.
For the sake of consistency, you can't trust what Guillermo del Toro says about movies anymore because he liked the movie. You can't trust what Denis Villeneuve says about movies anymore because he liked the movie. So those are both bad directors. Guillermo's not a real Mexican anymore. So, just for the sake of consistency.
Yeah. Glad that's cleared up.
Yeah. I give this movie an 8 out of 10. I very much enjoyed it.
I would give it a, probably like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Yeah.
Nice.
Glad you guys enjoyed it. This is a case where I like what it inspired a lot more than it itself. I probably will not watch this again unless I go through all of his other movies and then revisit it with the perspective of his whole career in mind. I will shout out though, I thought there was a really good like fade cut when there's that fella filling his water bottle at the fountain and it goes to a waterfall. I thought that was cool. And the general look of the film I did enjoy. I just didn't care about anything that was happening. So,
What's the number? Did you give a number?
Come on.
Oh yeah, I didn't give a number. I'm thinking a 2-star We're 4 out of 10 for this.
Sure.
Yeah.
You revoke your cinema license.
Ah, well.
It's over.
You can't talk
Cancel.
about things anymore.
But I'd give A Man Escaped a 9 out of 10, or a 4.5 star. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend that. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You're still canceled.
Yep.
It's over.
I'll survive.
Your worth as a critic is determined by how much I agree with. You have to say my opinions, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And also if it has a 98 Metascore.
Yeah. That's indisputable.
I'm glad we talked about it. I feel like it's cool to hear your differing opinions on it. Also, I feel like I want to watch more of his movies again. So
I'll definitely check out other ones. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. There's a bunch of directors that I need to like pop my cherry on, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
Neil Breen, I haven't seen any of his
What
films.
the fuck?
Ooh, you're in for a treat. Yes.
No. Okay, well, when his next movie is out, you have to see it in theaters. The theater experience for a Neil Breen film is unparalleled. Cinema is alive.
Yeah, it's very good.
Cinema is fucking
I'll come
alive.
up to Vancouver and watch it with you.
It's more likely that it'll be playing in Seattle. But although his last film did play in Vancouver. Yeah. Is it, should I tell the editor to edit out that part that you're Seattle?
Oh, no.
Okay.
People know.
Okay.
My address is out there for my social security. It's all fine.
All right. Question time.
Right, let's do some questions from the Sardonicast community. Head over to the suggestion thread over on the subreddit for future episodes. Let's start with this one from Admirable Try 9266. Speaking of, I think this came up earlier. What's an example of a movie that insists upon itself? Peter Griffin style. It's kind of really taken off that meme. And there's like different interpretations of it, I guess.
Megalopolis.
Oh, that's a good recent one.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I kind of feel like Conclave's that way because of that music. I was like trying to get into it, but it felt like it was insisting like, this is the biggest. Aren't you there with us?
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, what it's showing isn't like backing that up. The soundtrack feels like an entirely separate entity.
Yeah. There were a few from last year, actually. Folie à Deux.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys are going to hate me for this one.
Poor Things?
Do it.
Anomalisa.
Oh, shit!
Okay.
We hate you now. You're hated.
Yeah, what the hell, man?
So you've seen that once, right?
I've seen it once, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd watch it again. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Just trying to throw out things, you know, get the sparks flying, get the fists flying.
I'm so angry now.
Yeah, I need to revisit that movie.
Yeah, I'm due for a
what's another? Yeah, I feel like Joker Folie à Deux, though, is such a good example of that. It really insists upon itself. It really does.
Yeah. It's you know, the people look at that Family Guy clip, and some people, you know, their interpretation is that it's an illegitimate criticism to ever say that a film insists upon itself. But I think that, you know, when somebody does say that type of thing about a film, you could just rephrase it in a different way that people aren't, you know, primed to discredit. You know, when people say it insists upon itself, they're talking about it kind of like implying either an emotion or a level of importance or a level of skill or presentation that the film is not delivering on. So, you know, if some of the same choices were made in The Brutalist, which is very much, you know, like, here's what we are, but it was like a terribly made film like Megalopolis, then that would be, you know, that would fall under that category where it's like, okay, the film is not self-aware and it's not living up to what it's implying it is I think what the criticism is, right?
Yeah, Megalopolis is a great pick, as is like Southland Tales. Just these big swings and a miss. Yeah.
Is it okay that I like Megalopolis because it insists upon itself so hard that it starts to like spiral in the opposite direction? Yeah, it's just like, wow, I've never seen insisting that hard. So
I'm happy you had that experience because that's what I wanted and was hoping for.
Yeah.
Instead of the dreadfully dull experience I had there. What about like Crash? Everyone's been bringing Crash up recently because of Perez's nominations. I feel like you could say Crash insists upon itself pretty heavily.
I haven't seen that one.
Ooh.
Or what about Tenet?
No.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
No, I feel like Tenet knows.
I enjoyed it. I've only seen it once, but
I feel like it knows what it is. That's the thing. I feel like it knows that it's
I don't know.
Like,
it does have a little bit of a parody of itself vibe, though.
Oh, very much so.
The Nolanisms.
Yeah. It's literally a parody of Nolan films.
I need to rewatch that too and see how it hits. Because I saw it in IMAX and was like, I like the scale of it and the action scenes and whatnot, but couldn't tell you what the hell happened.
Yeah.
It's like a heist in reverse.
Very epic music over two characters, just like, exposition dumping while they're walking forward. Like, okay, that's a lot.
That's what I love about it. It's Nolan just going full, I don't give a fuck. This is, like self-parody, but in a way that was like, felt very going back to his pulp roots that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that one more than all the previous ones I mentioned, but we've got to do this one from Dabsloth 710. Hey Sard, so the question is for Jake. Congrats on becoming the third host after our last one got murdered by Adam. But I'll just have to ask, when you abandon your newborn, what is your thought process? Do you sense your son and wife are onto you and will catch you cheating on them with movies? Or do you think that they won't notice?
That's such a considerate question. And
yeah, I thought that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to think like, to be honest, it's really fine because my wife, Nadia, is also co-host on the second channel and we're like a business partners. So it's like makes sense for me to go do our business, by seeing a movie. So, and she's, cool with it. But, the fact of me considering how much time I spend away from my son, I have to think of that now every time I do anything and weigh whatever I'm doing, then it definitely affects how I think about movies and anything I'm spending my time on. Cause I'm like, you know what, is this really worth it? And, maybe I'm a harsher critic because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have an actual real question for you. Also here from Vinch Nezo. Jake, what book/author would you recommend to Adam Alex based on their movie/director tastes? Alex has mentioned Burroughs before, which I think fits, but for Adam, I'm not as sure. I thought maybe John William Stoner, since it's kind of depressing and in my view deals with some similar themes as Charlie Kaufman's films. I think I also remember Kaufman mentioning this book during one of his press things. Any thoughts?
Damn, that's a good question. I have no idea what your guys' book tastes are at all. And that can like be so different from movie taste.
What about based off of the kind of films we enjoy?
The films you enjoy, I think Adam, you love Charlie Kaufman. You like really like out there artistic films. I think you'd like Thomas Pynchon. I don't know if you've read any Thomas Pynchon.
I have not.
I've been, diving into Gravity's Rainbow, attempting it this time again, but very, very experimental and throwing everything at the wall. And
okay.
Yeah. So Thomas Pynchon. Alex?
What do you reckon? What you got for me?
I would recommend... they said Stoner, but I would recommend Butcher's Crossing. I think that is it's a classic Western that is also not nice. Classic. It's very like formal in the way it's presented, but subversive in what it has to say, and it's just a straight up harrowing survival tale. I think.
Yeah, I'm reading the blurb. This sounds cool.
You would definitely like. I did a whole video of that on my channel, but I think you'd be into that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm. What's funny? So in the Canadian conversations right now, we're all like trying to find ways to cancel our subscriptions and memberships to American companies, which is funny because Trump talks about it's a deficit, the trade deficit. It's like we're subsidizing Canada, which is just like an entirely not accurate economic understanding of what that even means. But what's funny about that is like within those deficits and those numbers, like what isn't included is like digital subscriptions, right? Like every Canadian has like a Netflix account or like an Amazon Prime or whatever, right? Like, so who knows what the numbers would even be like if we did include those things. But yeah, people are talking about like, I got to pause my membership for this thing. So I'm looking up, will I lose my books if I cancel my Audible membership? And it looks like people are saying on Reddit that if you paid for a title using money or credits, you get to keep the title. So I might use some of my credits. I might try to check out Gravity's Rainbow and cancel my Audible, which is funny because I'm an affiliate for them. This is how well I do sponsorships. I'm like, I don't really care.
You guys really need that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, though. Good one.
Yeah, I dig that. Warden of the North has one for us. If you could be a fly on the wall for the production of any film, past or present, what would it be? What are you drawn to? The drama, the intrigue, something like The Revenant, where it's extremely difficult shoot and just watching them suffer might be intriguing. Or a Stalker, famously.
I don't want to die.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Rather not be on that set.
An invincible fly that's immune to nuclear waste or whatever. Radiation. The Shining, obviously, things like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Neil Breen's up there for sure.
You could learn something there.
I'd like to see, because his production is like so secretive too. He made literally 5.5 hour long self-made documentary about his filmmaking process where he says nothing. He's like, people ask me what my favorite movies are. I'm not going to tell you. Okay. Literally the entire thing is like, I do all this myself. And he just doesn't explain his process. But yeah, like one of the things I respect the most about Michel Haneke is he's able to get incredible performances out of children. And I listened to him in like a Q&A, and people asked him about that. And his answer is essentially just like, it's as long as you just spend more time with them, like you do have to work with them more than, adult actors to get that performance out of them. But you just have to be mindful of like how you're interacting with them and actually take the time to get them to that place. I would love to see that process, because that just sounds like, even if I hear those words from him and, if like, let's say I direct a movie in the future and I have child actors, which is very unlikely. Let's say I'm working with children, even hearing that from him, I don't know how confident I would be in terms of like the amount of like patience or skill required to actually get an incredible performance out of children. But you watch one of his films like The White Ribbon, it's like, okay, there's like 30 kids in this movie and they're all giving Oscar-worthy performances. How the fuck did you do that? Right? There's certain things I feel like I could very much like learn from watching his process.
Yeah, that's a good answer. But Jake, what about The Abyss? I think you mentioned that last episode. That's got a kind of famously difficult production.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I'd rather not see that. I'd love to see that.
No, I would love to. Imagine the drama, the arguments, the pain, the misery.
That's true. I mean, I guess I would have different answers for like, it'd be cool to see the drama on set and like what actually unfolded, because there's so many classic stories of movies being made, Fitzcarraldo, that'd be interesting. But I think I'd pick maybe Nashville, a Robert Altman movie, because I'd want to see how he contains all of that chaos and improvisation and like how that actually unfolded. That would be really interesting for me to see.
Hell yeah. Should we do one more here?
Sure.
From Betting Flea 95. You guys have complained time and time again about when movies use music or have sequences in general to try to be cool. What are some movies or sequences in movies that do this correctly or in a way that you legitimately think is cool or epic? When I saw this question, the first thing that popped into my head was the lighting of the beacons from Return of the King. I I regularly watch that scene for this exact. It's just cool.
It is epic.
Sometimes something is just cool. It's just epic. It's what cinema's all about. You know, love that scale.
I thought the question was more. Was the question more like a song, like exterior music?
When movies use music or have sequences in general to try to be cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I see. So I was thinking differently about it. Yeah, that's a good one. Lighting of the beacons.
Howie Shore.
Howie Shore.
He was cooking. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in instances where I feel like those things do work, like, I don't know, top of my head, Crank, you know, it's like there's the energy of the music is very much complementing the energy of the film. For me, when it works, there has to be like a synchronicity where the style of the filmmaking and what is being shown is adding to the energy of the music, and the music is adding to the energy of the film. Another example is like Krisha, right? Like the way that film is shot very much complements the very unique and kind of like bizarre, like uncomfortable, but still energetic tone of the music. You know, like the music works incredibly well in The Substance. You know, the music works incredibly well in The Brutalist. But when we're contrasting to things where it does not work well, so in my opinion, we already brought this up, Conclave, it feels like the music is an entirely separate entity from the filmmaking, where in the places in the film where it's used and not used, they might as well be interchangeable, right? So they're like incredibly static shots of just conversation, and the music's pretending it's like there's some epic thing happening, like some kind of like serious thriller drama type score, and then, you know, like 10 minutes later there's almost kind of like a 360 almost kind of Michael Bay shot, and it's like the same type of conversation, and there's no music, and I'm like, okay, well, that, you know, that would have worked better, because at least the filmmaking here, the way that the camera work is being presented feels like it has a bit more of that kind of energy to it. But yeah, like something like Conclave, it feels like the music was an afterthought, and it's so difficult to see the intent when it comes to, like, I don't know, the connecting puzzle pieces of the film and how things are complementing each other.
Do you think Conclave was trying to be cool?
I mean, kind of.
It was trying to be like epic and important. Yeah.
I found, it really depends on the movie. Sometimes there's instances where it almost feels like it would be complimentary, but the music itself is so bad, like just terribly composed, that it doesn't matter, even if the filmmaking like somewhat matches it. One of the most distracting trying to be cool soundtracks was in a terrible film called Red. I think Bruce Willis was in it.
Forgot about that.
That was awful, horrendous music. Absolutely, like, just cancer score. It sucked. Worst soundtrack.
There's a lot of like post Tarantino movies trying to be cool. Will have the most obnoxious needle drops and waste everyone's time with the most bullshit sequences of like, okay, I get it. Yeah, you're cool. You're ironic with the cool, fun song while violence is happening. Okay, great.
You're so cool. He's so cool.
My last cool moment I'll shout out is the that shot in Fury Road where Tom Hardy's on that weird beam and it's all like timed, and he's with the music and he flings up in the air. That's like that was fucking cool. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. It's just cool, man.
Mm-hmm. I would say Scorsese has like 10 of these throughout his movies of just cool moments. That cool needle drop, like Layla, you know, in Goodfellas. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Scorsese, add some, you got to do intermissions, okay? You don't pretend like you went through this entire year without having seen The Brutalist. Now you know it can be done. Do it, or else you're dead to me, buddy.
Well, he's got like 15 movies coming up in the works, apparently.
Oh.
Yeah.
Every day I feel like I see a new Scorsese's working on something new with DiCaprio, so Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I really tried to tank it out with Flower Moon. And you have to do that awkward thing where you're like waiting for a scene that like, oh, maybe this is a scene I don't necessarily need right now, and I can like miss like 2 minutes of this moment. And it's like, ugh, just give me a break.
Yeah. All right. That was it for questions. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
We have a recommendation.
Yes.
Yeah, what have you got?
Go for it.
My turn. Oh, well, all right. First, you guys like David Lynch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
Okay. Okay, good. So he died.
Rip.
And have been wanting to watch more of his movies lately. I've seen quite a few of them, but a couple I haven't seen. Which ones have you not seen? Because I know you guys have done Wild at Heart on the channel. You've done Eraserhead, I think. Mm-hmm. I was trying to find your ratings for his movies. Have you guys seen Blue Velvet?
I have not seen Blue Velvet. I have not seen Lost Highway. I have not seen Elephant Man. And those are like, I think, the three biggest. Maybe I should go to his IMDb.
I've seen Blue Velvet, not Elephant Man or Highway. Yeah.
You haven't seen Lost Highway?
No.
You guys have seen Mulholland Drive. Have you guys seen Fire Walk with Me?
No.
I haven't seen Fire Walk with Me, but do I have to watch like Twin Peaks?
Yeah, I figured I had to watch the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that might be weird if you haven't seen the show. Okay. Yeah. Let's do Lost Highway. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Good for me. Hell yeah.
Very awesome.
Cool. Lost Highway.
Nice. If you haven't seen Lost Highway, 1997, directed by David Lynch, watch it before the next episode comes out. These episodes come out every 2 weeks. You can listen to them early and support the show by going to patreon.com/Sardonicast. Also, sardonicast.com, sign up for premium. Or just click on the thing on the YouTube video. You see where it says join? Fucking join that shit. Help us out. Do it.
Do it.
Join.
Also, where there's a Sardonicast highlights channel. You could check that out too. Maybe subscribe. Maybe hit the bell. Okay. Have a happy day.
Happy donkey. Happy donkey.
Thank you for the intellectually stimulating conversation, my friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did. We did a lot better than I thought we would with Alex and I being so sleep deprived. We just kind of got into it.
There were a couple of moments, but yeah, you get into that rhythm.
Yeah. The Brutalist is just such like it's such an intellectually stimulating film that it turned out okay.
It's like exciting to talk about, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel really stimulated right now, guys. Just
I'm stimming.
Hell yeah.
All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you, everyone.
Bye.